Hello everyone. Okay, so in this particular video, I thought that I would discuss how I teach English, what methods I use, what curriculum I follow, and so on and so forth. So this video might not be completely structured, what I'm saying, and there might be pauses because, like the previous one, this one's also completely unscripted, and I've made no preparation. Again, just switched on the camera and started talking. Okay, so now as far as teaching English goes, what I do is I do a mix of things. I follow the curriculum of international organizations like Cambridge and so on and so forth, and I also mix that a little with my own content. And the thing is that my teaching of English is broken up into broadly three components, right? So there is fluency, there is grammar, and there is vocabulary. Now, fluency and vocabulary are the things I focus on the most because I feel that doing those achieves everything that any prospective student is looking for, right? Which is basically to become good with the language. If they're not very good, to become good with the language. If they're already good, to make them better with the language. Everything can be achieved by focusing on fluency and vocabulary. And again, regardless of the level of my student, I pretty much always follow the same thing, which is doing stories, right? I have a list of stories and texts of different levels of English, which I make my students read. So actually, ideally, I would prefer it if students read it at home as much as possible. I mean, of course, for the beginners, that's not possible in the beginning. I mean, when the classes start. But after a while, any student, it's ideal that they do the reading at home, and in class we discuss doubts, questions, and clarifications, and so on and so forth. But from what I've seen, students never do that. It's always a task pushing them to do homework, which is why it always happens that whatever we're reading, we do the reading in class. And then as and when the student is confused about something, a word or a phrase or anything of that sort, we discuss it. I make the clarification and then we move forward. So yeah, this achieves the purpose of improving both the students' vocabulary and the students' fluency. So that's another thing. There's a point I make to students that I've been making it for a long time now, and I feel it's extremely important to understand that classes can only go so far. I've been teaching for 10 years now English, and I've always seen the same thing. Like I said, there's only so much classes and a tutor can do. Basically, what I tell my students is that if you have to learn a language or even improve a language, there is one and only one way that can happen, and that is through constant use, repeated use. And by that, I mean that it has to become a habit and a part of your life. And again, let me clarify. Some students are of the have the belief that watching English movies, for example, will make you good at English. So I saw this at my college a lot, and over the years I've seen it here and there. That's complete nonsense. Watching English movies is going to make no difference at all to how well you can use the languages. There's a simple reason for that, right? If you look at the curriculum of IELTS, for example, it has 4 tests, right? There's speaking, reading, writing, and listening. When you're watching a movie, you're basically just doing one of them, which is listening. So if you're just listening, if you're not talking, if you're not using, if you're not thinking in English, then how are you going to learn it, right? So that's why. So that's what I say. In order to make it a habit, a part of your life, what is essential is that you must practice it every day outside of class. So of course, we're going to do it in class also, but outside of class is absolutely essential. And so I emphasize this to my students, and that's what I tell them. Students frequently mention the difficulty of paying the fees, and I tell them that take fewer classes. I don't mind, right? It's okay with me if you take less classes. I will tell you what to do, and you do it at home, and we can discuss your doubts and your questions within class. That will achieve your objective. In fact, that's the only way to achieve your objective. No matter how many classes you take, no matter how long they are, no matter what you do, if you're not practicing the language at home on your own, if you're not doing the homework I'm telling you, then you're never going to learn it, no matter how much you pay, no matter what kind of course you take. It's that simple. So yeah, only a small. I don't want to turn people off here, but I just have to tell you the truth. Only a small percentage of the students with me are actually able to achieve that, doing the homework consistently, right? And if they do that, then of course the improvement happens. So yeah, so typically, since most of my students are beginners or lower intermediate when it comes to the competency of their language, which is why the stories that I assign to them, that we read, are stories that I take off the internet. Very simple stories, a few paragraphs or a few pages at most, right? With simple language, simple vocabulary, and so on and so forth. I have an extensive list of complex literature for very advanced students, but I don't often get a chance to use that, although that's my favorite. So yeah. And as far as grammar goes, again, as I mentioned, the reading that we do, just reading stories, in my opinion, is good enough to become completely competent in a language. Right? And I can prove that. I've seen it in my experience. All you have to do, if you want to become good at a language, is find stories in that language, read them loudly, take a pen and paper, write down difficult words, use the dictionary, find the meaning, you make sentences. Just all of this. So it's a funny thing that, it's actually so easy to learn a language, and yet people need tutors. But it's good that they need tutors, otherwise I'd have no source of income. So yeah. So I'm happy there as far as that is concerned. And let's see. So I was talking about grammar. Right. So yes, as far as grammar goes, like I said, constant reading and speaking of the language is good enough to write your grammar. But by write, I mean correct your grammar. But what I do is I do some exercises, grammar exercises, occasionally in class. Because there are certain things that need to be corrected. You can't come across every possible situation within the stories. Sometimes there are specific instances, specific scenarios in which you have to construct a sentence in a particular way, for example, and that sometimes exercises are the best way to get there. So exercises are important. Grammar exercises are important. But that said, one very important thing that I strongly believe in, and I know that English teachers all over the world are going to disagree with me, and good and qualified English teachers all over the world are going to disagree with me, but I still stand by my point. I believe that the theory of grammar is absolutely irrelevant, not as essential, not necessary, waste of time, right? I've been a voracious reader since the age of 4 or 5. I don't know. I've loved books as long as I can remember, and they're largely the reason that my own English is. This is what I believe, that it's largely accurate, 95% accurate. And the reason it is like that is not because I know what a noun is, or a verb, or an adjective, or an infinitive, or a split infinitive. I still don't know what infinitives are and split infinitives, and I don't care. And I'm telling you, I can teach you good English without mentioning all of these things. They're not necessary. Some things are necessary, like subject-verb agreement. That's quite important, because the certain topics deal with complex sentences, and it is important to address them. But again, like I said, I believe that I should teach you subject-verb agreement without using the word subject-verb agreement. It doesn't matter what those words are. If you just look at the examples, I'll tell you the examples, and I say that keep these rules in mind for situations of this sort, and it's good enough. So yeah, I strongly believe in that. So that's one thing. So, but yeah, other than that, it's about maintaining fluency through constant use. I mentioned this earlier, that story reading achieves the reading part of the story, right? The speaking part, if we look at it through the lens of the Cambridge standards, then proficiency in a language is split into 4 factors, as I mentioned: speaking, reading, writing, and listening, right? So the reading is achieved by the reading that we do. The writing is something that I don't practice so much in class, although it is a component, but it comes much later. I believe the other 3 are to be achieved first. The listening is again not so much a challenge because listening can be done anywhere. I can just recommend movies or something and that happens. So that leaves speaking and listening, reading, writing and speaking. Writing, reading, listening, speaking. God, I'm confused. I think speaking was one that was very important. So yeah. So well, as far as speaking goes, I believe it's absolutely critical because yes, in fact, one might say speaking is the most important of all the 4 components in order to learn the language, because that's what everyone has to achieve, right? Everyone wants to be able to speak effectively. Comprehension is more or less the easier of the 2 parts of communication. Expressing and comprehending, right? So comprehension is slightly easier. It's the expressing that is the real challenge. So, and yes, as I've said, you can only speak effectively if you speak constantly, right? So in the English classes, the students speaking in English is a large part of it, which is why I have them read out loudly. And again, as I said, it has to continue outside the classes, and that is the most important. So it is my belief that speaking with others outside of classes will not help for a number of reasons, many reasons, which I can't list all of them here and it will take a really long time to explain. But let's say one of the reasons is because you can't find someone who's competent enough to speak with, who will actually help you improve your English, right? So I believe that the solution to that, if you want to do speaking practice, and you have to do speaking practice, and to do speaking practice in English, it's quite simple. The reading that you do, you continue that reading, the story reading at home. Except that you take your phone and switch on the voice recorder and record everything that you're reading. And yeah, you record it while you're reading, and after the reading is done, you play back your recording and you'll get some idea of how you sound when you speak English. So that achieves many different things. But I'll just mention one of them here. One is that if you do this recording work constantly over a period of say 1 month, then over a period of 30 days, you'll be able to see the difference. The recording on the first day and the recording on the 30th day, you'll be able to see the difference. Here the difference, I mean, between how it was like, how you were stammering, how you were struggling with the language on the first day, and after 30 days of consistent reading, how much more comfortable you are reading and expressing it and using it. So that's extremely important. So okay, this video has gone on long enough, so I think I will close here. And like I said, I just talked about everything that came in my head, from my experience over the last few classes in the past few days, plus reflecting on my experience of teaching English in the past 6 months and on the past 5 years, and largely over the entire decade, over the entire last decade. So yeah, anything else that comes to mind, I'll mention in the next 1 or 2 videos. So, but this should give you an idea of what I do. I mentioned the story reading, but there are a number of other components also. So all of that is discussed in detail in the lesson plan which I have uploaded on the website. And if you ask me, I'll just send it to you. So yeah, it has a number of components. Singing is one example, idioms discussion is another example, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's it for now, and I hope it's given you some clarity about what I plan to do with you if you are a student who's going to join me to learn English. Yeah. So all right, hope to see you soon. Bye bye.